As a Gen Xer, you're reaching that age where it's time to plan for your financial future. You're also probably at that age where your school days are far behind you. But it's not too late to learn something new. Class is in session. This is the Gen X Wealth Academy podcast with Phil Telpner of Breakout Private Wealth.
Welcome to the Gen X Wealth Academy podcast, formerly the Breakout Wealth podcast. Phil Telpner is here, and Phil, of course, at Breakout Private Wealth, serving you in the greater Chicago area. My name is Ryan Stutz. Always a pleasure to hang out with Phil. If you'd like to have a conversation with Phil, 224-616-2016. That is 224-616-2016. Your number to call. You can have a conversation that is not going to cost you anything and not going to carry with it any obligation at all. And Phil, as we talked about in our last podcast, the name of this show now is the Gen X Wealth Academy podcast. And very quickly here, explain again why it is called that, why you decided to make the change.
Hey, Ron, how are you? Sure.
Great.
So the Gen X Wealth Academy is something we started about 6 or 8 weeks ago. It's a private, invite-only group that we started for, obviously, our Gen X. It started for our clients, and now we've started extending invitation to not clients. So call the number, shoot me an email, PT at Breakout Private Wealth, and I can send you an invite. I'd be happy to do so. It was a place where I can put educational content, like I said, for my clients and now for people that fall into this demographic, that I've used that has been helpful and beneficial to those clients. So it's free from any sales, free from commercials or whatever they are, whenever you Google or YouTube something, ads, I guess. But it's just educational content, some really cool checklists and workflows, how to think about the market. I do a weekly video, so all the weekly videos are posted there, short videos, 5 minutes or so, just on kind of a topic of the week, market related usually, or planning related. So like I said, it's a really cool private community just for people, Gen X families, so to speak. So if you're somewhere in your 40s or 50s, this is the place you want to be.
Yeah, we're basically talking about the upper 30s to the low 50s, I guess, and people who are in that Generation X boundary zone know that you are different, and I want you to know that Phil Telpner can help you. And why is that, Phil? Why are concerns different for folks who fall in those lines, and what is it that you can do to help them?
Well, here's something that people should know. Traditional wealth management, what worked for grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, is broken for our generation. We don't have pensions, so there is no backstop. All along the way of our prime earning years, we've had to fight the fight of massive increases in expenses, health insurance, college expenses, college savings, whether it's just kind of everything that goes into that has really made our generation, it's been tough for us. Now, there's been great opportunities and we've been successful, but one thing that people don't realize is that longevity risk is a major thing. Now, because of all these advances in healthcare, which is awesome, most of us have had good healthcare and we're going to live a long time.
Yeah.
Which is great. We just need to plan for that, right?
Yeah, it causes some other problems, though. I mean, living longer brings on more complications.
Well, if, like so many people in this demographic, there's aging parents, aging in-laws, just the challenges that come along with that. And to be honest, Ron, without a pension, we have people counting on us. We need to get this right.
Yeah. You know, you wake up every morning when you're a member of Gen X, You wake up in the morning and you have problems. It seems like there's a different problem every day. And I know that, some people's eyes may glaze over when you talk about a financial plan, but what you do is solve problems for folks, and you can really help them with that.
Well, that's it. Nobody wakes up and says, today, I'm going to go make an omelet and get a financial plan, right? Life just doesn't, right? Life just doesn't happen like that. But how we're working with our clients is we're giving them the framework to help them understand what it would take to make work optional. We help them build out a good amount of liquidity, after-tax liquidity. Meaning, I was just telling somebody the other day that I think that after-tax liquidity for a family is the best anti-anxiety medicine there is, right? Because if you have ample liquidity, not too much liquidity, where you're a cash hoarder or fearful, because then you're setting yourself up for other issues down the road. But ample liquidity where you can withstand and take advantage of markets like this, where you can withstand, heaven forbid, somebody getting ill, where you can withstand maybe some level of job insecurity for a period of time. That is critical. Those of us like me and those of us in the academy, we've got a lot of people counting on us. It is not the point in time where life can be very forgiving, I guess. So the decisions that we're making become that much more important.
You may feel as if you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and that is probably the case. And at this particular time in our history is a great time to talk about all this. With the stock market the way it is right now and with the inflation the way it is, there is no better time than now to have a conversation with Phil and get started on all this.
Yeah, here's what we decided to do. And I alluded to it earlier about this industry being broken in a lot of ways. Helping people put together a plan is independent for us from managing assets. We do a great job managing assets. It's extremely important, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
And just here's something that we'll do that I think you'll really like. We put together one-page financial plans for people. So gone are the 60-page documents. I've seen them actually bound with leather. Yeah. People are paying like 9-10 G's for these things.
And a lot of times those things are just full of boilerplate material.
Like it's a advertisement kind of a thing. Just some charts and a few projections. Well, projections make assumptions of the future. Okay, I mean, at some level, that may or may not make sense. But people need to know an assumption is a best guess. that is not a certainty by any means, right? Mm-hmm. The smartest people in the world are at the Federal Reserve, and they've pretty much blown this whole thing the whole time. So I just push back on all of that. And one thing people should know about how we're different and what we're doing is independent of the market. We're helping people make changes now, quarter over quarter, year over year, that will impact their financial future as much, and maybe I can argue more, than whatever portfolio management that we do. So I think our generation somehow is just stuck on your portfolio somehow miraculously. That's all you need, and it's going to save the day. And I don't like. I'm not kind of buying that. There's a lot of other moving parts there that we can help you with that will dramatically improve your situation.
One thing you mentioned just a moment ago spurred me on to ask this question. Liquidity is very important for everybody, and we're not just talking about money in the bank, but you mentioned being tax efficient with your financial matters, and you're talking about after-tax wealth too. Annual expenses. A lot of people out there right now don't really think about this, but when work optional becomes a part of their life, when they are not going to work every day and earning that regular paycheck from an employer, for example, they don't realize that Uncle Sam is still going to be in their pocket, and Uncle Sam may have a huge share of what you think you have accumulated.
Well, that's like the old story of a client comes into my office with, we start talking, and, they're proud, as they should be, of their $2 million 401k or what have you. And that's awesome. And they should be congratulated on that. But what they fail to understand is Uncle Sam still is there for 30% of that.
Yeah.
Or at a rate in the future that we don't know.
Yeah. Which is almost certainly going to be higher.
Of course, right? Because they've really not done a great job with this economy. So I think, without being political at all, that the burden of a lot of this is going to fall right on us as Gen X, right?
Yeah.
So what people also have to understand, and this is where working with an advisor that has a deep understanding of all these issues, if you don't have a pool of after-tax investable assets to draw from as well, your income is totally dependent on or impacted by the tax rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
To your point, we don't know. We don't know what that's going to be. If you have taxable assets, if you have, let's say, Roth assets as well, there's so many more options for creating a stream of income that is managed, that we can tax manage much better. So I've been seeing a lot of this with our generation and having a taxable account. In fact, I just told somebody the other day that you cannot be a client of mine unless you are contributing to a taxable account. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's $100 a month. That's fine. But everybody needs to contribute ongoing to their taxable account. Even more important when markets are bad, because this is the time the expected returns from every dollar you put into the market now are significantly higher than they were last year, January of 2022. So
we're talking about liquidity here on the Gen X Wealth Academy. And Phil, before we started this podcast, you mentioned one thing, and that was a liquidity score. What in the world is a liquidity score? What do you mean by that? And can you give us an example of how you might grade someone on that?
Yeah. So I'm a competitive guy. And
I never would have known that.
Yeah, right. Well, I just think that, having a scorecard. Now, I want to be clear here. There's no good or bad. Everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no judgment. It's not like that. But having a way to keep score allows us to be objective. It allows us, most importantly, for improvements, mm-hmm. right? If you don't keep score, if you can't, how do you improve?
Yep.
Right? So if you're in a meeting with your advisor and he's like, well, the Nasdaq's down 30%, but you're only down 19, and then, okay, awesome. But what are you improving on in that conversation? You're a passenger. You're not making any improvements at all to your future. And that would drive me insane. And I think that's where a lot of this anxiety comes from. So let's keep it.
Yeah. If you're in it to win it, they don't give out participation trophies.
Not in this game. No, sir. No way. Let's just look at an example. Let's say you spend, let's say you spend $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have after-tax investments, cash, and say a taxable account of 200,000.
Okay.
That gives you a liquidity score, let's say, of 2, obviously. That means that you can live 2 years off of your taxable investments before having to go into anything that's going to be taxed or penalized or anything like that. So it's, 2 may be too high for some people, 2 may be too low for some people, right? That's where working with an advisor that can help, I hate this word, unpack, but that can help understand your personal situation and make those recommendations. Some people with very secure jobs, let's just say, or certain situations, maybe a 6 months is enough.
Yeah.
Some people, they have 2 months. When we get to 6 months, it's time to party. That's a huge accomplishment for some people, right? When you get to when you get to a year, that's life changing. You go to bed at night knowing that I made these small changes, month over month, quarter over quarter, and now I have a year. If something happens, I'm like good. I have a year to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And that's just an example, but people don't necessarily think about it that way, and they certainly don't organize it in such a way that it could be measured and improved on.
Yeah, a lot of Generation X folks out there listening to this podcast today, and these are the kinds of things that you can talk with Phil Telpner about. You don't want to lie awake at night worried about not having enough and not doing things correctly when it comes to being tax efficient and all of those things. So why not give Phil Telpner a call at Breakout Private Wealth? His number to call is 224-616-2016, 224-616-2016. Phil's office is in Glenview, serving folks all over the greater Chicago area. And again, one more time, that number is 224-616-2016. Generation X folks have special problems, and Phil Telpner can identify with those and can help you solve your problems. And you've been listening to the Gen X Wealth Academy podcast. Hey, Phil, it's been a lot of fun being with you today, as always.
You're the best, Ron. Thanks. And if anybody out there wants an invite to the Academy, we'll drop it in the show notes or something like that, so it'll be easy for you guys to find.
Phil Telpner's been doing this since 1987. He can certainly help you. One more time, that number, 224-616-2016. This is the Gen X Wealth Academy podcast.
Breakout Private Wealth, LLC, is a registered investment advisor located in Glenview, Illinois. Today's content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before taking any action.